Another hot North Carolina day, right? Another hot Carolina. So we're going to try to do a fun little project for you guys while staying cool. Framing art or framing pictures is something that exists in every household and everyone has a need for, right? And there are a million YouTube channels, a million YouTube videos that show you how to make simple frames, and we have done that in our channel as well, right? Today we're going to take a different approach. We are going to use a different method of hanging art or display something on the wall without making a traditional frame, making it a little more contemporary. So stick around and we're going to show you how to do it. So today we're going to build this simple display system that you can display fabric or art, all kinds of different things, right? Pictures will work beautifully with this. I mean, you can scale it, of course. You can make a picture this size, but that's the other good thing about DIY, right? You can scale things.
Right.
Today will be a very step-by-step process. So we're going to show you every step. If you have never done anything in woodworking, this is the episode to watch. We're going to show you absolutely everything in excruciating detail.
Excruciating?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So stick around. So we once again raided our scrap bin, and we're going to use scraps to build the project for today. We're cutting it to approximate width, which in our case is what, 17 inches?
Yeah. Slightly over 17 in this case.
You have to match it, of course, to your specific fabric and needs. But we're going to cut several pieces to 17 inches, and then we're going to rip them for the depth we want, right?
Right.
When you cut pieces of wood that are not very wide to length, the chop saw or miter saw is your best choice of equipment to do it. The table saw is a little more unstable and unsafe to do this specific cut. When you cut small pieces on the table saw, you need to be very vigilant. As you can see, the throat for our plate here is very wide, and it is not a good way to cut small pieces. And also my blade is not quite cutting through the piece. So I have to raise my blade, not a good thing to do. You have to stop your cut and go it over. And also the piece we're cutting is rather small, and it will eventually fall in the throat, and it can become a projectile and present a serious danger. So plan your cuts. As you can see here, it fell through the throat. Not a big deal. It wasn't going through because there was no pressure, but it is important to do it right. Our wonderful piece ended up in the bottom of the saw here, so we're going to retrieve it and go from there. So we're going to practice and see if we chose the correct diameter drill bit. While we abandoned the idea of recessing, in retrospect it was a good idea. And here is one of our neodymium magnets. It would have made for a much cleaner overall look. And it is actually one size up. Take 2. Practice using scrap, anything that you have never done before or you are certain about, especially if it has to do with sizing or a very exact fit, as was the case here. We wanted the neodymium magnet to have a snug fit inside. So always practice before you do it on the piece. Yep, that's it. But I think I went a little too deep. Practicing and dry fitting allows you the opportunity to make small adjustments and test for fit before you are ready to commit in the project.
That's a good magnet.
Make sure to use neodymium magnets, as normal magnets will not be strong enough for this process. All right.
All right.
The first one, the other one that was more was a bit. We chose the thickness to be about 1/4, and again DIY allow you to make it any dimensions you want. We're using scrap 2x4s that we're going to cut. We already have cut to the correct width, and now we're cutting them to the thickness we desire for our project. This is a repetitive process. We have to do it about 12 times because we need a total of 12 pieces. But that is okay. Once you set it, the key here is to not move your blade and your fence, so you have consistent thickness on all your pieces. Measuring and remeasuring doesn't give you good results. Just set it, do it one time, do all the cuts, and then move on to the next task. That is the best and most efficient way to do it. So because we have 12 pieces to make and we want them very similar, we're going to make a template first. So this piece we're not going to use, right?
Because it's got the rounded edge on it.
So we're going to make a template out of it. All right.
I was going to have a straight edge so we could make sure I had them all lined up. Alright, so again, this is our template, and I used basically just the 1.5 inch wide to make a mark here at the end and at this end. And then I measured for a center point from end to end. And then I measured, this is a 1.5 inch, so I put in a 3/4 inch mark. And now basically I'm just trying to make sure that everything is kind of lined up by using my square. And it's not super critical because we're just going to use this as our template for all of the others. But I just wanted to get a visual on it and see if I had put it together pretty well. And it is pretty square. So.
But now we're going to go through, because this is a template with our 3 holes. So we don't need this. We're going to have to make a new one. Using a very sharp drill bit, it's very important here because you want a nice clean cut without a lot of fuss or any tear on your piece. Remember, this is a final furniture looking piece. Okay.
It's a pretty thin piece of wood, so of course it goes through very quickly.
In addition, thin pieces of wood are very prone to breaking or splitting even when you're drilling them if your drill bit is dull and not totally sharp.
And you had asked for a drill bit with a point on it to be sure that you can put the point right on the mark where you want the drill to go in.
Yes, plus it doesn't wander.
Right.
Drill bits without that point tend to wander, and this is a very small circle, right? I mean, if it wanders, it won't work very well for us.
Right.
A clamp is a must too to make sure that your wood doesn't wiggle.
Right.
So now we have our template. We've got 3 holes in exactly the location we want them, and we're going to use this template to transfer to the pieces we're going to use for the project. And we'll have the holes in exactly the same place on every single piece.
And for this, we've got 12 pieces to make.
With all our pieces cut, we now work on the final details, and of course sanding, right, our favorite.
Yeah.
Again, this is a finished piece, right? So we want it to look good.
And now these are going to be burned just like the other parts of my project, but I wanted to get these cleaned up just a little bit, just because this was a scrap piece of wood that we recycled from another project.
We using scraps, stay ain't so.
Yeah, here, so we had laminated this piece, and if you can see, there's the piece of the old that had been with it, so I'm just taking a blade to try and get the bulk of that off, so that when I run it across the sandpaper, it's not as much to deal with.
When you do that, ideally do not slice your finger.
Ideally, and as you can see, I'm taking the blade away from my body, not toward me.
And after a lot of sanding, and after millions of hours of sanding, we are about done. And our next step will be Suzuki bang.
Right. My favorite.
Burn them.
Burn it, burn it.
Now, a warning, because they are thin, there will be some warping of these boards. Hopefully it will not be bad enough we have to make a new one, but we will try and see, right?
Right.
So let's go to the Suzuki bang station. When you use Suzuki bang, you can do a light burn, something like this, or a deeper burn. The difference between the two is that you just hold it longer, right?
And you can go back over it, and also keeping in mind that different pieces of wood will burn a little bit differently.
And you can also charcoal it, completely. And for this project, we're going to leave and treat it to the back sides, what will be facing the fabric in essence, right? And are you going to Suzuki bang the back ones that they won't be visible or not?
I probably don't need to.
No, you don't need to, but it's up to you. It's a look thing, right? So we decided to poly the pieces that are going to be visible. One of the great advantages of polyurethane is that it locks the look. So once we use the poly, the look will not change, especially since this piece will not be exposed to UV. It's going to be inside, hung on a wall. Poly is a great way to make the finish even more vibrant. And you go over the piece. You can see the movement here, right?
Are you thinking the very last one?
Yes, I'm getting all of them.
Crap. Put it down, put it down, put it down. Leave it.
That was Elpida talking to the dog, not related to the project. All of them have
Let's
this.
say that's like 17 total.
Yes.
Okay.
And now you let poly dry. You like that? Yeah. So now we're testing to see if we need to go to the trouble of making the indentations or not. So we put two magnets together as they will be, sandwiching them. If you want to see what it looks just by looking at it, put only one, because that you will never see that big of a gap. Half of the gap will be behind the fabric and half of it in front. In our case, we're going to hang fabric, but if you're to hang pictures or something thinner, you might want to recess anyway, because the gap will be more obvious. What we're doing now, that will be the total gap, but now we want to see how it would really look when you have it on the wall, right? And you won't be able to see the whole gap. Leave it down and we can bring the camera down.
I'm just making a good view.
So is that something you're okay with or not? I mean, that's ultimately what it goes down.
I think that's fine.
Okay. So we decided to forego the complexity of making the holes for it, just because we think it's going to make it a little faster, a little easier.
Yeah. We can still use the template to place all the magnets though.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I brought the pieces here.
Yep. And then we can...
And then we're going to play with the Elpida's most favorite tool, the hot gun. The glue.
Hot glue gun?
Yeah, the hot glue gun.
Mm-hmm.
What you're going to do, you're going to take the template we made, pull it over each one of your pieces, align it, and then take a pencil and make a mark in the middle, as much in the middle as you can.
Or you can do the circle.
Or you can do the circle. Or you can do the middle.
Kind of hard to see, but they're there.
Yep.
And then we can put a dot of hot glue. The only tricky part is making sure that when you do the opposing side, you make sure that your magnets are lined up so that they will attract and not push apart. Right.
We mean oriented correctly, not aligned. Because we are making 3 pieces, we have a lot of repetition here. If you're making 1 piece, you only have to do any step we show you here twice. In any case, this is a project that you can easily batch together. It is very straightforward, very easy to do, requires minimal tools, great beginner project. So go ahead and give it a try. Would love to see your results. So we think we have a system figured out, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have marked little marks where the magnets will go, and then we're going to put a dab of hot glue. These really require either 2 people or a person with 4 hands. And then on top of the dab, press the magnet. To make our life easier, we already put 2 magnets together, and we're going to repeat that 139 million times. Now what I would suggest, now that we know the correct polarity, is maybe take a permanent marker and mark the top magnet, so we know that where the mark is, it goes on the glue. What do you think of that? By pairing the magnets together, we avoid any alignment issues. Alright, so we have the 3 attached. Now we're going to go and put a dot on top of each magnet. So when we are removing them to put them in the other piece, we'll know to use the correct side. The side with the dot goes on the glue, right? This was not really a necessary step. And you can see the dot there. You can see the dot there. And you can see the dot there. Great tip if you recess the magnets. Now it's a lot of rinse and repeat, right? We keep doing that in what we have 12 pieces. Remember, we're doing 3 at the same time. And hopefully we have enough magnets. We did have enough magnets. While waiting for the poly to dry, we're finishing the back pieces, which we chose not to Suzuki band, not to finish, right?
Mostly because I didn't want the char to rub off on the wall. Not for any other reason.
Well, and it's not visible.
Yeah, it isn't visible, but that is something to consider if you're doing that.
Because we poly the pieces, any charring would never be visible. But, and that way you always know what's the back and what's the front if you change.
True. Very true.
So now we're done. We had enough magnets. In fact, we have a few left for other projects. And once our poly dries, we are going to move to the next step. For hanging purpose, we're going to put some little eye hooks, and making pilot holes is a good idea because A, you could otherwise split the wood it's very, very thin. But even more so, it is easier to start the eye hook when you have a little bit of a opening already, right? A pilot hole already, than when you have nothing. And this is a task that clearly a smaller drill is an advantage versus a very large like our flex.
Right, because it's not as powerful, it's not gonna...
And it's smaller in size, so you can handle it a little easier. It is not necessary to have multiple drivers, but in this case, having smaller and larger ones work to our advantage. So we created a little bit of a jig here to align our pieces. We decided to go this way versus one at a time. So we're putting 3 dabs of glue on each, aligning our piece. Hold it for a moment or two. Once the glue touches, you cannot move it. And then take it off. Hot glue bonds almost instantaneously. You don't have to wait. Rinse and repeat, right? So a little jig like that is really important for your alignment. Otherwise, you can do it by eyeballing it, but it might be a little bit off, right? You can also use epoxy or crazy glue for this, but it is not necessary. Hot glue provides all the strength you need, since this will never carry a lot of weight. But in any case, use whatever you have. As you can clearly see, making pilot holes make this process extremely easy. You can turn them in by hand. The wood is soft and we already have a pilot hole, so that is very fast, very efficient, and makes it easy. You could of course hang it using just the eye hooks, but we decided to also put a little bit of twine. Is that what the thing is called?
Twine.
This is strictly a matter of taste. Make it a little more visually interesting, right? Again, this is not a necessary step. Or if you prefer, you can use hanging wire. I don't know what it's called. Isn't that what it's called? We went with twine. Again, a lot of personal preference. And one of the positive things about DIY is you can do it whatever way you like. You don't have to accept whatever you find in the store. So to help us with a simple project today, we made 2 jigs. One is the spacing jig, so all of the magnets are on the same spot. And the other is an alignment jig, which allows us to put the pieces aligned in both in 2 dimensions, which is what you need to make them perfect, as you see here. Jigs save time and give you accurate results. Those 2 jigs took but a couple of minutes to make, right?
Right.
And they make sense if you make more than 2 of something. So in this case, worked very well. We just use hot glue to do them, which means that I can still separate it. I mean, I say I can separate.
We might need that again, man. Don't do that.
So you can separate it and use it for something else, right?
Right.
But as you can see, it's not as easy as people think to break the bond of hot glue.
Mm-hmm.
People think it's very weak. As you notice, it isn't. Just a couple of lessons from this episode. Even though we decided to put the magnets just with glue without recessing them, as we're in the process of, we realized recessing them would make a lot of sense. Both visually would be much tighter than it is now, but also would align the magnets better than just the glue. This is fine, and the only reason we decided not to do it that way was time, right? It's a delicate operation, and we decided to forgo it. Were we to do it again, we would have put them recessed. What do you guys think?
I would think so.
It would be a good idea, right? The other thing, I would probably go one side magnet bigger.
Yeah.
For our purposes, it's fine because we're going to use fabric. But if we're to use something heavier, probably this magnet will not be good enough. And I say it's fine, but we haven't tried yet. So
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. It might or may not be fine. Cost. We always like to talk about cost. For us, it was scrap. Everything was things we had. We had the little hooks. We had the wood. We had the...
I did buy the magnets.
How much were the magnets?
I want to say like $8. And then the fabric I had purchased some time ago. So technically for this project, there was no additional cost, but I want to say it was about $10, $12 when I bought it a while ago.
So could we say scraps and $20 will do this?
Yeah.
So it is not a very expensive project, and most everyone, okay, we have excessive scrap, but I think most everyone will have scrap good enough to do this project.
Yeah. You got a 2x4, you got it.
Yep.
This area, if you're going to hang these panels on the wall, because you don't want all the creases, you want these to be straight.
Okay, so we would start with that process, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that your fabric is ironed and crease-free.
Yeah. So when it comes in folded, you can see all the creases here, and so when you're wanting to flatten it out, you are going to take out all these
and when you're done, you can either use a story stick or a measuring tape to decide the dimensions, right? And in this case, you only care about the width. The length is irrelevant.
Well,
because we don't do anything with the length.
Right, because I bought fat quarters, but if you were buying longer panels of fabric, you could make
You
them.
still don't care.
You want to make them whatever size you want, because for those of us who are fabric savvy, we know that they come in 36-inch widths and 60-inch widths and also 45-inch widths.
Right, but for our project, the length is irrelevant, only width matters. So you simply align the back piece with the bottom of your display item, and then you put the magnets together, right? Mm-hmm. Similar process for the top. You need to take it apart first. The magnets are quite strong and quite sufficient, as you can see here. Align it.
And the magnets really do pull together like fantastically. And they just pop right there.
Okay. Lift it. So here we are. This is the final product. The other two are identical, so we're only showing you one, right? Mm-hmm. And as you can see, it is a nice way to hang something not in the traditional way, in a little more modern, a little more eclectic way than just making a frame.
And because it's fabric, you can switch it out for other fabric that might match new decor, or if you just get tired of this one and like another one, yeah.
And you can use that for a poster or all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
I've done something similar that I'm going to show you in a moment for a periodic table of the elements for the office. Sometimes you do not want a traditional frame. You want something more modern, more utilitarian. And we did in the past a project for my office for this periodic table of elements, which is a very good idea of a different style frame that is both modern and easy to build and very good looking. Of course, as we have said before, the biggest advantage is you can make as many you want in whatever dimension you want, and the cost does not go exponentially based on the frame size, but you can control it completely. A little different technique, but again, we like to make things different ways every time. So, ladies, we already talked about a couple of things that we would have done different. Anything else we learned?
Well, hot glue's hot.
We always learn
Always.
that. We made the strips of wood, pretty thin. You could make them a little bit thinner if you wanted to, depending on how you're putting the two pieces together. And you can also change sizes if you wanted something more strong, like having a bigger magnet.
Right.
So there is a lot of variability and a lot of finishes, of course. And in your case, you can even turn it around and go from this look to a plain look.
An unfinished look if it goes better with the fabric. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. The back of this fabric doesn't have the same print on it, but
It is the idea.
Yeah, but it's the idea that you could potentially
so you can go
turn
from one
it
look to another or finish them different.
Yeah.
Like you could paint these, or you can stain them or whatever, right?
And then you've got multiple ways to display something without all the extra effort.
You don't have to do anything else, right? Just
right.
Rotate it. This reversibility was unintended, but a wonderful benefit of our design. It hangs nicely. It looks great, right?
Yeah.
So this is our episode for today. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, we'll appreciate if you support us by giving us a thumbs up. If you didn't, press the other button twice. Share, like, subscribe. Let us know if you like this episode and if you would like to see similar episodes in the future. From Professor DIY, Elpida, and Mrs. DIY, let's build something together.